What's up, Sieves?
What's up, Sieves?
Hey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Riffs and Rants. I'm Anna.
And I'm Shawn.
Yeah, and we're excited to talk some more music with you.
In case this is someone's first podcast, YouTube, why do you feel like you should have a podcast about music?
I mean, I actually don't feel like I should. I feel like you should, but I'm here, I'm along for the ride. I'm a music therapist and musician, so a lot of my day and night jobs are, music focused. And how about you?
My name's Shawn, and I own a record store in Phoenixville called Forever Changes Vinyl Lounge. And I have been my family owned record stores. My dad opened his first store in '67, and it stayed open until '97, and that was probably definitely my first job. But I've been around music literally since I can remember, and started collecting at the age of 13. Someday I'll get into why I like collecting versus just, because I'm the age where like to just listen to music you had to buy a record.
Right.
So
it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But at the age of 13, just the short version is once I got turned on to the Beatles by my brother Joe, I'll get into that. It's a whole other thing, but I discovered the world of crate digging and collecting in order to find things that you couldn't get in a store. Mm-hmm. I need to give you a shout, though, because Anna, we don't talk about how amazing you are as a musician.
Oh.
Anna is a singer-songwriter with 4 or 5 albums?
5 if you count the live album.
Okay, yeah. Her most recent release is a live album recorded at the Gem in Spring City, Pennsylvania. You can find all this stuff on Bandcamp and all the streaming services. And her last studio album, Precipice, is incredible.
Thank you.
I feel like we'll talk about you enough as far as...
Well, I appreciate that. And maybe depending, because every episode we try to focus on something, a theme, which we'll get to today's theme in a minute. But yeah, maybe in the future, we can focus on songwriting or something that like I can add a little bit more to.
I know we teased musical theater last week and we got some responses about that. So
yes, noted.
That'd be pretty fun.
Yes, and we always welcome feedback about what you'd like to hear us talk about. Anything that, is interesting to you, please just let us know.
Yeah. Totally.
But what is today's focus?
So we're continuing with what I consider essential years in music. Last week we did 1967, and this week we're doing 1969.
Okay, so not too long after 67.
No, but it's interesting how we need to sidebar at some point, off camera, discuss why it feels like things now don't move as quickly as they did back then.
Musically or in general?
Musically, and I think I know music, so I don't want to say culturally because that's but 1967, 1969, so much happened, and it's 2 years.
Yeah.
But if you think about I don't know. Trying to think of a current artist, whether it be Beyonce going from what was the first of this series about, the most recent Cowboy Carter, Renaissance.
Yeah.
I know they're very different projects, but Last Dinner Party, there's a 2-year gap between their albums, and there's not a seismic shift. The way Wise Blood, I think there's a 2-year difference in the album before most recent album kind of thing, and you just don't see that
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, let's kind of get into it, because in the last episode for 1967 we talked about Sgt. Pepper, how musically that was such a shift and inspired so many changes in other musicians' work.
And
so
all the debuts.
Yes, all the
crazy,
debuts.
just
oh my god,
legends of music. Their first album, even people you wouldn't think of, Dolly Parton,
right? Yeah,
and Cat Stevens, even though his classic era hadn't started yet. His 60s stuff, the most famous song most people know is First Cut is the Deepest. But his, Wild World, the era that Cat Stevens, that hadn't hit yet. But his first album came out in 67.
Yeah. And this is really funny. And you'll have to remind me who gave this feedback. But a friend sent us, after listening to that episode, sent a New York Times article
that
called 1967 the year of Engelbert Humperdinck, who we did not mention
We
at
did
all.
not mention. That was hysterical.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Who was it? Can we shout
I can't
them
remember.
out? Okay.
Oh, man.
Tag yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I apologize, I forgot. But yeah, literally it's a newspaper article.
Yeah.
And then our friend was like, hey, you forgot someone. And
Apparently we did. Sorry,
the year of
Engelbert.
Humperdinck. Forget Sergeant
Yeah.
Pepper. Oh my gosh. But so 1969, and we can revisit this because it is such a dense year, and I don't plan on trying to touch on everything.
Okay.
It's nearly impossible in one hour episode. And the other thing is like where 67 had a Sergeant Pepper is a, what's the word, just an anchor, like a marker kind of thing. There's like there's no real, there's no specific album that there's a before after, or there's a defining, this album defines the year kind of thing. I think if there's, and let me also address something is, when I was a teenager, I'd say, like the first time one of my family members played the Beatles for me was I was 13. Always loved music before then, but that was the first time it was like I'm listening to music from before I was born. And pretty quickly from the Beatles, I got into Dylan and the Byrds. The Who I knew before then, but I got deeper into it and just really was exploring music of the 60s. And it was important to me, and that's when I'm getting to 1969, to understand the cultural landscape, like what created the music I was listening to, and that has stayed with me. And the year that did that was 69.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the music when I listened to music from 69, Abbey Road was the first Beatles album I ever heard. That was 69. Tommy by the Who, the first CSN album, and they're just, I don't know, I was curious. I'm like, what? This is 1986 when I was, listening to this. And I was like, what was happening?
Yeah.
And so I, read a lot of books and checked out some PBS documentaries and just to find out what 1969 looked like. And the reason I bring that up is it was a really heavy year.
Yeah, a lot of...
Yeah.
I mean, you're the one that knows this history, but I feel like it was a lot of assassinations.
Well, the 68 was Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy. And that was the year, the election year when Nixon was elected. So 69, you have Nixon. Vietnam was out of control. I mean, it had been, but, a lot of, the Black Panther Party was in full swing. It was a really intense time. And, it's, even though right now feels scarier than 69 might have, I wasn't there, but it feels like now, like what it might have been, just where like everything feels heavy. And so that musically, that's a difference. I mean, granted, all these things were, 67, they were still reeling off of President Kennedy being 64.
Right.
Really, I mean, even at Monterey, like David Crosby is still talking about, multiple shooters. Like that was not lost on people's, radar. And Vietnam was still happening, but there seemed to be, and again, I wasn't there, this also, I've talked to a lot of like boomer folks throughout my life, just wanting to understand like, what were things like back then? So this isn't just out of like ignorance and whimsy, just like, I know what 1967 was about. Like, I don't, but just, I feel like I have an understanding. And there seemed to be a sense of, for lack of a better word, hope. Almost like, we young people have a better way of doing things. Like, we've found, whether it be through acid or through weed, whatever, it's like, we found a way of existing. And by 69, it seems like that was like, oh, crap. Like, this all just sucks, and we're trying to survive.
Wow. Yeah, I'm curious, like, what, and maybe you're getting there, but, like, what about the music do you think kind of reflects that?
So, the year starts off in January with 3 albums that it's weird to say it kind of defines the year because they're not. It's not a Beatles album. It's not, like they're not traditionally historic records. Somewhat, but January you had the first Led Zeppelin record.
Okay.
Which for however you feel about Zeppelin, I think they terribly rip off so many artists without crediting them. But I do love Zeppelin, and I think it frustrates me that they didn't credit artists the way they should have, because it doesn't take away from their impact.
No, it would have been so easy, and like they did take the songs to a different level. I totally agree.
Yeah, like Dazed and Confused was written by Jake. I'm forgetting his last name. That's okay. I don't. We're not going to edit. I don't need to know.
Okay.
A folk artist, and they're if you listen to the original Dazed and Confused, first of all, the title's the same. It's the same song.
Yeah.
And I think in recent years, maybe after a lawsuit, if you look at a current repressing of the album, it says inspired by.
Okay.
But at the time, it was only credited to Zeppelin. And in my store, I love playing this original. People are like, wait, that's a cover. It literally is a cover. It's not even it's not even a ripoff.
It's not even inspired.
They covered the song. And it's a holdover from the Yardbirds when Page was still in the Yardbirds, whatever. But anyway, all that aside, the first Zeppelin album, the second Creedence Clearwater record, and the second Fairport Convention album, which if you look it up, in the UK it was 68, in the US 69. And the reason that feels like, just, it's interesting that they all came out in January, is you have this heavy album. Just, the first Zeppelin album is just dark and heavy, and just, CCR, they would start in a 3-album run. They put out 3 albums that year.
Wow.
All their if you're looking for their hits, they're on one of those 3 albums. So you have a band who's has hit their stride. Even though they're from San Francisco, had that sort of southern, kind of cosplay a little bit, whatever.
I do get that.
Yeah. But also just this roots Americana sort of sound. And everything okay? Okay, sorry. Full disclosure, the store's open, and I told the employee working if he needs to reach out to me to text
it's a different thread. It's all good.
Gotcha. And the Fairport Convention record, just, again, sort of a gray-skied, British sort of melancholia kind of thing. And it just, somewhere in those 3 albums, at least in the rock, because soul and jazz were hitting some major strides in 69, but as far as rock, somewhere in those 3 albums you have the tone of 1969.
Interesting.
And if you've never heard the second Fairport Convention record, it's called What We Did on Our Holidays. It is stunning. They had just signed on their new lead vocalist, Sandy Denny. And I was just reading that, in the auditions, it was there was no. Once they heard Sandy Denny's, there was no one else. I was
when you hear Sandy Denny's voice,
there's very few things in the world like her voice. And
so I think it's interesting that, I'm always interested in how the British artists fit into all of this, because obviously they had a different cultural context than the U.S., but they still were tapping into something.
Well, from my understanding, and feel free to comment if you know more about this. I know. I wish I knew more, and I should look into it more. But from my understanding, that time period in England, there was the economy was crap, and so there was a lot of. It was a bleak. They didn't have Vietnam and things like that, and civil rights, but it was a pretty bleak time in England.
Gotcha.
And you'll hear that in the music. If you for me, I put Fairport Convention, Nick Drake, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin in the same category. And you might be thinking Black Sabbath, but if you reflect back, there was the word heavy metal didn't exist yet. They weren't a heavy metal band. They were a British band that was hard and that rocked, but very blues inspired, and just dark and just heavy, and sort of like that's for Zeppelin album. If you listen to a lot of British music around that time, it sounds very bleak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of note of despair resonates with
Yeah.
where the U.S.
Yeah.
is. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that depending on the artist you listen to and enjoy, it was either a year of endings. It was the Beatles
Oh
were
yeah.
not in the great spot.
Yeah.
And, you know, their final studio album would eventually come out in September.
When did Brian Epstein die?
67.
Oh yeah.
And that was man, we'll have a Beatles.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was you know,
Yes.
a lot of people try to say Yoko broke with the Beatles. She did not. That is an untruth, and I think kind of a bigoted thing and sexist thing. And if you look at you know, the Get Back, the overlong Peter, what's his name, the Lord of the Rings guy.
I'm blanking on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Peter Jackson.
Yes.
You know, Beatles thing. You know, yeah, Yoko's there. Yes, you know, John and Yoko were a match set. But to me, if Epstein was the only person that those four guys listened to.
Yes. Yeah.
And
there was a vacuum.
Yep. And if you listen to interviews or listen to the Beatles talk about Brian Epstein, they say Mr. Epstein. You know, as famous as they were, you know, and when you take out the guy that all four of them listened to, and you've got Paul with this like, let's do it, like it's kind of like, you know, I'm the leader now kind of thing, and yeah, I don't want to crap on any of the Beatles, whatever.
Sorry for this tangent.
Yeah, sorry, but you know, Paul definitely had a, you know, Magical Mystery Tour was Paul's idea. Like he had this sort of, you know, I'm gonna get us through this kind of thing. And John seemed to be distracted, probably by Yoko. Also, I think by politics. Like John was very much involved in what's going on.
It felt like he was going in a different direction, and you know, it's not just about the music; it's about saying something meaningful. Yeah.
And George, definitely the spirituality. That he was really, you know, that was his focus. And I think at the same time, you know, George had hit by 68. His writing was in peak form, and I think he was getting sick of being relegated to 2, 3, you know, on the White Album, 4 songs per album. When, like, if you look at sessions for the White Album, sorry, 68, you know, and you listen to George's, like, Not Guilty is one of the best Beatles songs in their catalog, and it was left off the album. So, and then, yeah, Ringo's Ringo.
Ringo's like, come on, guys.
I know. And you'll see, like, if you see footage of those Get Back sessions in winter of 69, like, he's sitting at the drums like, can we please?
I know.
He's just, like, waiting.
Like, waiting for mom and dad to stop fighting.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, you know, there are a lot of factors, but I think the person that they all listen to, you know, not being there. Yeah. And you have these, you know, at least 2 huge egos and, you know, 4 very different personalities. Yep. You know, that was it.
But I've derailed you.
Sorry. Yes.
Going back to 69.
Yes. So you know, as far as endings, you know.
Sure. Yeah, that was a big deal, and especially because they hadn't been around that long, and I'm sure. Again, I wasn't there either, but I'm sure that people were thinking they would have like an incredibly long, you know, just they would keep putting out hits because they were so talented. Yeah.
And you know, we're looking at hindsight. You know, without the internet and without, you know, it's like, you know, you're going to 60, 69, and actually January 69 was Yellow Submarine, which, you know, it is an out there movie, but it's very fun, very whimsical, and I don't think people, and you know, you don't know that they're in the studios trying to work on this Get Back thing and arguing and so forth. So as a fan, you're just waiting for the next Beatles record.
Sure, yeah. You know? How would you know?
Yeah. So at the time, 69, you know, wouldn't have felt like the end of the Beatles, even though there were definitely some side projects. George Harrison had a really weird album called Electronic Sound that he literally had just gotten a Moog synthesizer, and it's just him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Lennon was doing his unfinished music albums with Yoko, which is just complete noise. So, you know, yeah, you know, I don't know what it was like to be a Beatles fan then, rather than just waiting for the next album. But, you know, in hindsight,
that is significant. Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, you had some, you know, debuts. Well, Zeppelin, of course. I need to check my reference point for debut albums because I don't want to miss anything. oh, CSN, the
Oh,
first
yeah.
CSN album, which again, an ending. Buffalo Springfield had broken up in '68. And you're like, what's going to happen next? And Stills had done some solo stuff. Crosby's solo album may have come out around that time. But yeah, so CSN is like, oh, cool, wow, we have that Laurel Canyon thing's happening again.
Yeah.
The first Flying Burrito Brothers album, which probably was not that's another one in hindsight, a huge, giant thud in the landscape of music, but probably at the time people didn't really know much about them.
I'm curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
There's one other that MC5. First Genesis album, and again, things that no one heard that first Genesis album, so it wouldn't have been done much at the time.
Right, but it's not about like these are the highlights of the year. It's like these are the things that made this year impactful.
Yeah. First Chicago record, which was a big deal. Hair was that year.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, but so, there were some beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
One significant beginning, I know with these series, we lean towards like rock and soul and non-jazz because, that would be a 3-hour, podcast, but, very important, release. I think it was March of '69, was, Miles Davis's In a Silent Way.
Okay.
Which that was his first full electric album.
Oh,
yeah. Right before that, there was an album that half of it was acoustic, half was, I think, Korea is on electric piano on that album. But In a Silent Way was the first full electric Miles record, which, I can't overstate the importance of Miles going electric.
Yeah.
When people were in my store, I literally, show them like one half of the store. I'm like, that wouldn't exist without Miles going electric.
There's before and after that album.
Yeah. So if you want to, you didn't feel it in the moment, but if you want to look, 50 years later, that album could be the Sgt. Pepper of that year.
Wow.
Yeah. Just such an important album. So you have, things that feel like the end, things that are beginnings. You have just peaks. Sly and the Family Stone's Stand album came out that year.
Oh, wow.
Which, even though they had been around since '67, they hadn't. So the story with that is, they hadn't hit. They weren't a cultural phenomena yet, and there's a whole thing of like everyone that saw them live were like, almost like with the Dead. It's like, oh my god, and the label was like, how do we get people to experience what these audiences are seeing, so they actually recorded a Fillmore East show and in '68, and that was going to be the next album. They had it all slated for release, so it's like, check with these guys out loud. And Sly had played, it was either Everyday People or Stand, I forgot which song he kind of played for the label, and they're like, oh. If you're doing this, then they recognize like this is going to be it.
Yeah.
And so the Stand album opens with I Would Take You Higher. Oh, actually no, it opens with Stand. Sorry, Stand. And then I Would Take You Higher's on there. Everyday People, Sing a Simple Song. It's just like again, it's I've had young people in my store who don't know Sly very well, and they're like, is this the greatest hits album? I'm like, you think? You would think.
Unofficially.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. It is, and, then, of course, something that a lot of folks didn't know happened that year that we now know thanks to Questlove with Summer of Soul happened that year.
I thought that was that year.
Yep, yeah. I think it was 5 weeks in the summer of '69, and of course, Woodstock. So it's just, that's why, again, I know we're probably like 20 minutes into this, but it still feels like an introduction because is such a dense year.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with just kind of just browsing through just different things. Okay, so one this is going to circle off into other different episodes because so May of '69, and let me actually there's something else that came out that month that was important, but there's 2 albums. Oh, that's it. Yeah. So May of '69, 3 albums came out, and they all are, damn, that's insane. Sorry, I'm just looking. Stan actually came out in May, that were all offshoots of Buffalo Springfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so for another podcast, my favorite band, like non-jazz rock band, is Buffalo Springfield. And the members were Stephen Stills, Neil Young, Richie Furay, Bruce Palmer, and wow, my brain, the drummer. Eventually, Bruce Palmer had exited, and they ended with Jim Messina as the drummer, and as the bass player. Sorry, and
sorry, our cats are running around, so if we seem distracted, if you hear background noise, yeah.
Anyway, and so when Buffalo Springfield broke up, as you could tell by some of the names, Stephen Stills had formed CSN, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or Crosby, Stills and Nash. Sorry. Neil Young had a solo career, and Richie Furay and Jim Messina formed a band called Poco. And in May of '69, Neil Young's "Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere" came out, which has like "Down by the River," the title track, "Cinnamon Girl," the first CSN album, which of course, "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes," just everything. It, again, is it a greatest hits album?
Yeah.
And the first Poco record. Someday I will have a sleep cast for you guys, because I have an obsession with the group Poco. And one of the reasons is if you were a Buffalo Springfield fan and you were like, I missed that sound, of those three artists, the group that would have sounded most like Buffalo Springfield was Poco. Just a country rock kind of thing. And, they, I won't get to, because if I go there, we're done.
Yeah.
That
is literally on a list of future episodes, and it might be the one that you put on to fall asleep.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's mind blowing that, if you were a Springfield fan, like, you just had a great May, because you get a great legendary Neil Young record. The first CSN record is just one of the greatest albums of all time, and the first Poco album, in my opinion, is one of the great rock albums. And the first, I need to stop there because someone would comment on that. One of the first launches into country rock, and just to pivot to correct myself, I've done a timeline of country rock, because it annoys me to hear people be like, "Oh, that was the first country rock record," and so most people cite "Sweetheart of the Rodeo" from '68 by the Byrds. You can go earlier than that with Graham Parsons and his International Submarine Band, which I think actually is. I'm going off mega tangents. But anyway, country rock, 2 albums that year were super important, and it was that Poco album and another album, the debut album by the Flying Burrito Brothers, which was Graham Parsons' band. And Graham Parsons, another extremely important person in music. And just to get an understanding of the term country rock, country rock truly exists only because rock bands that were playing perfect country music were not allowed to be called country by the country cognoscenti. Graham Parsons, young guy from Florida, loved gospel, loved country, loved soul music, went to California, went to LA. He was a guy around town. He loved country music, and he had a band called the International Submarine Band, and he was just turning people on to country. And eventually he was hired as Crosby's replacement in the Byrds, and he completely took over that band. And they released "Sweetheart of the Rodeo" album, which pretty much destroyed the band. And as they toured, Graham Parsons, who also was friends with the Stones, the Stones had told them you shouldn't play in South Africa because of apartheid. And so he told Roger McGuinn, hey, there's this thing going on in South Africa that we really shouldn't, we shouldn't tour down there. And McGuinn was like, nope, sorry. So Graham Parsons left the Byrds and took the bass player and drummer with him. So yeah, 68 starts off with a 3-member Birds that hire a guy to make them a 4-piece.
Oh my god.
And by the end of 68, it was one guy in the group because of Graham Parsons. And
Yeah.
so he and those 2 other guys, which was Mike Clark, the drummer from the Birds, and Chris Hillman, the bass player, they formed the Flying Burrito Brothers. And despite the silly name, that debut album, which is called The Gilded Palace of Sin, is remarkable. And I'm remarkable is not a good enough word for how incredible the album is. Fusing literally, there's an Aretha Franklin song on there.
Wow. Which one?
Do You Right Woman?
Okay.
Yeah. There's like old country standards. There's, originals that they wrote. And it's just like that whole thing of like, I don't know it's like, I hear pedal steel, so I guess it's country, but I don't know, and and so, it's one of those albums between Sweetheart and, which was 68, but Flying Burrito Brothers' first album and, the Poco album. It's one of those, without those, you wouldn't have to this day, Jason Isbell, anything, Dixie Chicks, like anything where the Chicks. Good.
I'm curious because this whole like gatekeeping around the country genre, not just musically but kind of like culturally. Do you feel like that was a factor back then? Like, who are these hippies?
Oh, that's exactly it. Like, so I kind of skirted that, but just to divert off of 69 for a second. No, it's fine. I love playing people the Sweetheart of the Rodeo record, and they're like, oh, this is country. Like, any ear would hear that and say, this is country. And so the Byrds went to Nashville because that was like, the Mecca. They couldn't wait to, play in the Grand Ole Opry and everything. And they got there, and the Nashville folks there were like, you guys you're not us. This isn't our music. Yeah. And
it feels very reminiscent.
They looked at the hair, they looked at the, and it's like, are you listening to the music? Because this is fucking country music. And so that's where the term country rock came from, because like they were not allowed to, country folks would not let them call this country. Right. And which is so interesting, because if you listen to where country music went, like Tanya Tucker's album, for our albums, early albums, they're very rock. Like it's like, there's some Eagles records that sound more country than a Tanya Tucker record. But it's like, if you have not been invited or been born into country, it's like you can't. So it's just weird that like, Nashville was so exclusive that even some white boys couldn't get in. Well,
again, 50 years later, it's like Jason Isbell is not country. He's like whatever, like alternative Americana.
That, it drives me nuts. Where it's like, you listen to some of the Americana stuff, it's like, that's country.
Yeah, but like the ideological difference, it's not like the good old boys kind of thing. It's like,
you're not one of us kind of thing.
Anyway, that's an aside, but it just made me think of kind of the split now.
But that's exactly it. Because I remember, again, like getting into these different, artists and genres as I was a teen and in my early 20s, and landed on like Linda Ronstadt. I'm like, this is country. And it's like, nope, she's rock kind of thing, whatever. Or like, the Eagles' Desperado album. It's country as hell.
Absolutely.
And, but yeah, and it's just like, no, that's rock. Yeah, that's country rock,
anyway, just keep derailing you, but it's interesting, like what conversations come out of that year.
So 69, you had, just country rock becoming a thing. The singer-songwriter movement in full swing.
Oh, yeah.
Joni Mitchell's second album. Because the first album was 68. So Clouds was her second album that came out that year. And both sides of that had already been a hit because of Judy Collins, whatever. Right. But Laurel Canyon had shifted from the Sunset Strip, Love Doors type thing to the more acoustic, kind of vibe. Do you want to? Where should we go from there?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm wondering. I keep thinking of like, has this phenomenon showed up since then? Like I kept thinking of because you've talked a lot about like recent music and how like what year was it, 23 or 24?
That was like this epic year kind of thing. I think it was 23,
Okay. And just like as much as I agree that like it seems like musically things aren't moving as fast as it seemed to then, like I do wonder in, however many years, how will people look back at these years in music? What will become influential sort of thing?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned 23. 23 is on my list, 2023, of most important years in music.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But it's like it's interesting where I wonder if years from now 23 will be the 67 where this year would be the 69 kind of thing, because like the year's just begun, and we have Springsteen's song that just came out. Billy Bragg just put a song out about what's going on now. You can already sense the like heaviness of music right now. Listen to Williams' album. Trying to think, there's been 2 really good jazz releases, but we're only we just started February, so I'm curious how just silly things like Olivia Rodrigo has an album slated for this year, and I'm just wondering if there might be some revisions. Like if I don't know, she feels like a authentic and organic enough artist where it's like I want my music to represent where we are now. And so I'm just curious with this year. Yeah, because, 2023 was like, wow, there's so much happening, kind of like 67.
Yeah.
And yeah, but so another thing that's interesting with 69 is the look of artists' sort of look.
Okay.
And yeah, so where 67, if you look at album covers and look at them live, I think lots of flowery, Victorian, that sort of like Sgt. Pepper adjacent, Hendrix at Monterey had a sort of, I forget what those jackets are called, it's sort of like a military, like a kind of thing, whatever, very showy, lots of colors, lots of just, paisley everywhere. And if you look at 69 by album covers and even, live shows, it was very earthy. It was like maybe a distressed Henley and jeans, kind of a, green military look, the Country Joe kind of thing. Even like Pink Floyd's Ummagumma album cover, it's like they're just in t-shirts and jeans in the grass kind of thing. And there's very much this like tone of like, Jefferson Airplane's Volunteers album has a song called The Farm, going back to the farm kind of thing. And, Creedence with that very roots, just that there was an interest, and that's what I mean, in 2 years, it went from just flower power and just like colors to just, like cowboy hats were a thing, just t-shirt, lots of that distressed Henley kind of thing, which I love that look. And yeah, it's just, I mean, if you, even, Janice, it was just, it was just, just very casual, not, you can't tell the difference between if the person's performing or if they're an audience kind of thing.
Which, like, that kind of makes sense given the emotional tone of that time, where it's like, instead of it, it's like, things are exciting, we're expanding our minds, whatever, it's like, oh, we're, a lot of heavy stuff is happening, and I don't know, it makes sense, the appearances reflected that. I actually just thought of, because in the episode about 67, we talked about soul music a little bit, and just that difference between what white artists and black artists were doing, and the difference in parameters around what sort of things were like permitted. I'm curious if in 69, if it felt like, I don't know, what was going on in the soul world.
It was finally, there was some degree of catching up. Temptations were moving into what they call their psychedelic soul era, which you have like Psychedelic Shack and what was that album? Cloud 9. So like they were, we hadn't hit full on Marvin Gaye, what's going on yet, but the artists were trying to talk about things going on. The Supremes' Love Child. And even that cover, the album cover of Love Child, it's like Diana Ross and the Supremes are just like wearing just out. There's no gowns.
Which we talked about that last time, but that is very different from their kind of brand. And even like the writing on the cover is kind of like graffiti-ish kind of thing, whatever. Interesting.
Like they're in like an apartment, kind of a rundown apartment, like that's the look of it.
Wow.
So the Motown was, inching its way into trying to be relevant to where the people were, kind of thing. I know Aretha had, I think, 2 albums this year, and just to put it in a more general way, like soul music was hitting a next level stride. You know, it's soul has always been amazing, whatever, but like '69 was, you know, one of the many like peaks in soul music.
Yeah.
And just it's you know, a perfect example is the Summer of Soul movie, which
Yes.
please watch this film. And you know, we're huge advocates of physical media because as you see where things are going, you know, who knows if you'll find it streaming or not. It is,
they can't censor your DVD collection.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they're here in the Philly area. They took down some pieces of Black history at our it's called the presidential. It's a part of not City Hall, but the historic area, Independence Hall, in Philly. And so it's like, you know, they're trying to dismantle and get rid of our history, and so own your stuff.
Yep.
And so, you know, go on eBay and find a seller who's selling a copy of Summer of Soul and get it, because you know, that movie does more than what I could possibly say in any amount of time, and you get a full glimpse of just the diaspora of Black music at the time, because each week was a different theme.
Yeah.
Good, sorry.
And also, sorry, I love how Questlove did this, because he interviews people who were there as audience members, and then also, you know, some folks from the Fifth Dimension, and
so sweet.
Yeah, just like you get really a sense of like where the Black community was at, I feel, and like how much this concert series meant. You know, it was such an uplifting, you know, representation of the music and the community that was going on.
It's an absolutely beautiful film.
Yeah, it really is. It's a part of history that just hasn't been. I mean, it was only released, you know, very recently. But
it's weird. It is not just. There's one guy came in the store, and his complaint about the movie was they didn't show enough of the musical performances, and I'm like, you know, it's like you missed the point of that movie.
Exactly.
You know, we can. You know, maybe someday he'll put out a DVD of the performances, but there was so much history that needed to be told.
Yes.
And the fact that, you know, 50 years later, there are some people that were there, that are alive.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need to hear these, you know, we can listen to the music whenever, you know, we need to hear these stories.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you do watch it and you're like, oh, they only played half of this song, it's like, you're missing the point. And so, yeah, it is. So there was a gospel week. There was a, I think it was like there was definitely a jazz one. I don't know where Sly, I think there might have been just like a soul, but basically, you know, there was a week of like Max Roach and Abby Lincoln played, and Mahalia Jackson and the Stable Singers were there, and what was the group that did Oh Happy Day?
Edith Hawkins, right?
Edwin Hawkins.
Edwin Hawkins. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And yeah, there, you know, David Ruffin, who had just left the Temptations, was there, and you know, Sly, of course, and Nina Simone, and Fifth Dimension, Last Night in the Pips. It's just like, oh my gosh, and you get to see, you know, what it's hard to describe, of like just that different look of where like David Ruffin still has the suit on. It is still doing the Motown thing.
That's true. Visually, it feels like it captures, you know, where things have been and where they're headed, because then Sly and his group are just
however the hell they
hippies.
show.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
and you know, Gladys Knight, like right between the two, where it's like it wasn't the gown thing, but she has almost the schoolgirl sort of thing.
Right. It's very like she's very cute.
Yeah.
Which like that kind of was jarring for me, because I'm like, she's such a legend, and she just it's almost like a schoolgirl sort of dress.
It was great, but
oh my god, their moves.
It felt like it. Oh yeah, the Pips.
Yeah, no,
my gosh, yeah, the Pips were incredible.
Yeah.
But it felt like she was meeting young America.
That's true.
Where it's like showing up in a gown. It's like, who's she? But it's like she looked like one of the girls in the crowd. Maybe not that day because it's outdoor and hot, but like going to school or something.
Yeah, there's an approachability, a relatability that it makes sense. Yeah.
And Fifth Dimension, where you know they even address it in the film, where like, you know, I had a moment when I was early on in collecting, and my mom was kind of guiding me into things that I should listen to. I forgot what single, it's a 45 that she told me to pick up by the Fifth Dimension, and I liked it, you know, but pretty quickly once I got into other music, I was like, oh, okay, these guys are a little hokey, and actually a friend of mine, my friend Joel, used to like, I didn't know the song until he would jokingly sing Up, Up and Away.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, and yeah, if everyone needs to know my friend Joel, he's the funniest guy in the world. And I was like, what is this song? And I finally like, heard it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cheesy.
Yeah.
And so, they, were like almost like the Sandpipers. Like they were, mom and dad's, music kind of thing back then. And which I don't know why my mom liked them, because like she liked some pretty revolution stuff, whatever. But it's you get in Summer of Soul you get a whole different viewpoint of them, because growing up in the '80s, I knew Marilyn McCoo and Billy Taylor. I think comment if I got his name wrong, sorry. From like Solid Gold. Like Marilyn McCoo was the host of a show in the '80s called Solid Gold. Okay. And it was funny because like here I am, like a teen or preteen, whatever, and like there's this lady that clearly was like in her 40s and she was gorgeous, and all of a sudden like you see Fifth Dimension, it's like, oh, and then like now in Summer of Soul, like she's probably in her 80s, whatever.
She
like,
looks fantastic.
Woman's beautiful. Yeah. It's like, can you age, please?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, they're not someone that you would think represents Black music back then, but as you hear their story, it's like they were Black artists, and it just shows like we're not in a monolith. We're not just funk. We're not just deep Southern bluesy soul, whatever. We can sing pop as well. And the one thing that really impresses me is when you kind of understand like sound and like live sound back then, their harmonies are perfect.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I don't know what the monitor situation was like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at the edge of the stage, but I know, because if I'm not mistaken, the Dead, they were the ones that like invented or kind of like like monitors, whatever.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so I don't know what the monitor situation was, but my God, their harmonies are perfect.
Yeah,
it's like So anyway, sidetrack, but yeah, just to almost if you want an idea of like soul music in '69, Summer of Soul is a great way of just being educated and learning, and just Black culture, and it goes so deep into just the politics of New York City, and just it's incredible. So that's my sort of where soul was. Yeah. We have to touch on Woodstock.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So there were a lot of festivals that year. That once Monterey happened in '67, the idea of like the rock festival became a thing. Woodstock is another one of my weird obsessions. I don't wish I was there. I wouldn't want to be there. It sounded horrific, whatever. But my takeaway from Woodstock is that boomer work ethic that is a thing. It's there. We have these neighbors on our block that they have to be the oldest people on this block.
We call them the Energizer Bunnies.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're probably in their 70s.
Yeah. That sounds right.
And when we have a snowstorm, they're shoveling everyone's sidewalk.
Yeah.
And like this past big snowstorm last weekend, they're shoveling cars out.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're sleeping in. and you hear, folks of that generation like just kind of give the rest of us crap for like not working hard enough, and the moment you want it, that noise is one of our cats.
Yeah, Ernie's scratching up something he's okay to scratch up.
Yes.
Yeah. He's telling us we're going too long.
He's like, can you guys be done? And you kind of roll your eyes like, oh, boomer kind of thing. It's like they really do have an insane work ethic.
Yeah, so what did that look like in Woodstock?
So the reason I bring up all that is because the conditions were absolutely terrible that weekend.
Yeah.
We're like, any of these megastars could easily been like, I'm out, I'm done. And for the most part, they put on the performances of their careers.
Yeah.
And so when one of the neat things to look at, if you like Wikipedia, the times of the sets, that nails it, because Sly and Family Stone's set was I believe 3:30 in the morning, and if you listen to it, they do an encore. I mean, it's incredible. CCR's set was I think 1 in the morning because of the weather and just
right.
Everything like it was a scheduling nightmare and things were
everything was starting late. Yeah.
It started late to begin with because They had to move the site at the last minute.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I remember an interview with one of the guys who put it on was like they had two things: they could either build a fence or a stage. I think it was.
Oh my God, that's
And they
right.
didn't have any the time wise.
Yeah.
And it was like, so they didn't have enough fencing.
Yeah.
And they're still literally trying to get this thing going. And I forgot who was supposed to open it, but they didn't have an opener yet. So Richie Havens was there, and it's like, hey, can you get on stage and start this thing? And he just puts on the performance of
God.
a lifetime of his career.
Yeah.
Just
last minute.
play some music for the people. And
I forgot about that because he's such an essential part of that. Like,
yeah,
you would never think that was like an afterthought, like last minute. Hey, we need someone. Like,
exactly.
go.
Yeah, it starts off with one of the greatest performances,
Yes.
and it was just because we need someone on stage now.
Damn.
Yeah. Joan Baez was like 7-8 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
And it was about midnight. It was like midnight, 1 in.
Yeah.
And she put on a stunning performance. Santana, not their debut performance, but like they were nobodies.
Which
And
he was on a lot of acid too, right?
yes, that's not even a one-off. Report after report is like he has said like they had dropped acid, and he thought his guitar was a snake.
Yes.
Yes.
Like the neck of the guitar was like a snake.
And so when you look at that look of like, oh my God, it's not like posing. Like he's literally like tripping.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest performances, of their career. The Dead were being electrocuted by their instruments because they're staying in ponding water. And still, I know the Dead themselves don't like that performance, but I think it's solid. It gets really weird with the Love Light. Someone like hops on a mic and starts like being weird. But in general, like they kept it together pretty well. The Who, I think their set started like maybe 4 a.m. and they went till about 7.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they play all of Tommy, the entire Tommy opera.
That's
with an encore.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then one of the funniest was the Airplane. They were told they were going on, I think, midnight. And when someone's like, sorry, we don't know when you're going on.
Yeah.
They decided to drop acid.
Yeah.
And, at 8 a.m, someone's like, oh, you guys are on.
8
kind of thing.
in the
I
morning.
know. And it's a 2.5-hour set.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
And then, Hendrix gets bumped to Monday morning. And, for less than half the crowd, Hendrix was playing, I think, 9 in the morning, 8, 9 in the morning, whatever. And, most of these performances are recorded. Like, you can hear them. And if you don't know when they're happening, it just sounds like, 10 p.m., rehearsed fully. It's just like they're epic performances.
Yeah. So there's the musicians.
Yeah.
But then, like, there's the camera crew, there's the sound crew, like, everyone, like, logistically making this festival happen was awake and working that whole weekend.
Yes,
so, like,
incredible.
So, shout out to boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
seriously. Like, whatever there's like, you kids, grandpa kind of thing. It's like, even when they were in their 20s, like, they just did the job that they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
I honestly...
On acid.
Exactly. Tripping balls. Like, I literally don't see a version of that. With the current music scene, no matter who you like, no matter who you respect, whatever, I just see these folks being like, I mean, even actually, my first Stones show was at an outdoor stadium in Philly, that stadium, and it was a torrential downpour. Like, I felt like we should have been there. Like, me and my buddy were holding onto our seats because the wind was like whipping us so hard.
God.
And the opener's Blues Traveler, and they decided not to come on. The Stones, who easily could have canceled. If they canceled that show, been like, this makes sense. Played the full 2-hour show. The only one covered was Charlie Watts in the rain, and it's like, yep, that's that work ethic kind of it. So I love Woodstock, and I'm obsessed with it for that fact of like, as someone who like loves music and loves live performance and loves musicians, just the fact that there was every reason for this thing to be canceled, for this thing to whatever, just be cut short, or for some bands to be divas and like, I'm out here kind of thing, and put on performances of their careers. And so the movie's great. The only thing with the movie is it's out of order, which might make for good cinema, but it bugs me because like, one of my favorite moments is it's CSNY's second show, and one of my favorite things is I think theirs was like 2 in the morning, whatever, and you hear I can't remember if Still starts playing the hook to Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, and you hear one of them say, should we tell them who we are? And Crosby's like, just sing and they'll know. And I love that a lot.
That's really great.
And and just incredible performances. Their live version of Blackbird that night is unbelievable. And Neil had this whole, Neil's there too, but he shows up nowhere in the film or recorded because he didn't want to be filmed or recorded.
Interesting.
Yeah, he insisted on not being, Neil's I love Neil Young, but I don't get him sometimes. So even I think on the soundtrack, the Sea of Madness, that's on the Woodstock soundtrack is not from Woodstock, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
There's, I think, 2 performances that aren't. Mountain's performance is from like a Fillmore show, like a week or so later. But yeah, it's unbelievable. And the band, oh my gosh, the band is so good that night. And that was another 69 release, the second band album.
Oh, okay.
So I'll wrap up soon.
Okay.
Sorry, because
Ernie's telling us we got to wrap.
Okay, so another, not a debut album, but an album that without this record, there wouldn't be ... And at the same time, the reason, in my opinion, the bar is so high is because of this record. So the mostly Canadian group, the band, put out their second album. It's just called The Band. Some people call it the Brown Album. The songs you would know, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and Cripple Creek, Up on Cripple Creek are the famous songs. But front to back, it is a bona fide masterpiece. And one of the things I say about this record is it's these, except for Rick Danko, I think, no, I forgot. Except for one member, they're all Canadian. And they're playing, the album is American music, Americana, before there was a word, being played by Canadians. And, a song like The Night That Drove Old Dixie Down, it's a weird listen because it's talking about the Civil War from the perspective of the South and kind of sympathetic, but it's like, it's from people who, aren't as connected to our history as we are, and it's just a story. And, the instrumentation, and it is, it's cosplay. It's, and it's just done really well. And it's one of those things where when you hear like a, should we say like Mumford or like these groups that try to rustic Americana, the banjo and the, it's like whatever, and that look and everything. And I have a hard time with those groups because they're doing nothing better than what the band did in 1969. The standard for Americana in that way is too high. And I know we kind of talked about like country rock, kind of being connected to Americana kind of thing. I feel like there's a difference in a Jason Isbell sort of like twangy rock, country infused rock kind of thing versus, let's break out, the banjo and the fiddle and pretend like we're, bluegrassy type thing. And just, I sorry if you like a lot of these bands, but like I have so little tolerance because I've not heard anyone add on to what the band did on that one album.
Gotcha.
It's unbelievable. And again, the storytelling, similar to the last episode where I talked about Dylan's John Wesley Harding, where, he's creating these stories. Same thing with the second band album, King Harvest and Jawbone, and they're talking about, this old man that did this, and this time this happened, and this lady, and they're just characters. They're creating folk characters that, and it's incredible. Yeah. But,
so, as we're sort of wrapping up, my takeaway that feels very relevant, from all of this is like, even in a year that from the beginning was kind of defined by this like heaviness and despair, some really incredible things happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like just the monumental achievements of like Summer of Soul, the concert series, and Woodstock, and all the incredible like albums that were released. Like even if it wasn't outwardly as vibrant and colorful and joyful as 67, it's like there were some really important shifts happening.
Yeah. And we had to finish up with 2 very important things. Abbey Road, which eventually became the Beatles' last recorded album, I know Let It Be came out the year after, but, you know, in terms of new music, like fresh music recorded, Abbey Road was it. And I think people were realizing at that point this was it for the Beatles. The Stones put out, in my opinion, their greatest album, Let It Bleed, that year. And the year ended with one of the worst instance of the year, which is Altamont.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, man, heavy start, heavy finish.
December 69 was Altamont. And to get a pretty good understanding of that concert, watch the Rolling Stones Gimme Shelter movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. The movie is of the full 69 tour, but it what was supposed to be, it's interesting to watch the movie because it's almost like reality TV, where like the point of them filming was this, you know, tour that would end with this big festival that the Stones put on, and you see them in real time. Like the documentary shows them watching what should have been the documentary, and being like, "Holy crap, this is terrible." And spoiler alert, yes, a black man gets killed by the Hells Angels at Altamont. And
Hells Angels was hired for security.
For security.
Yeah.
With weighted pool cues, pool sticks, whatever.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Marty Ballin from Jefferson Airplane got beat up on stage.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, that if there's a tone in 69.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't feel too far off from where we are now.
No, it really
like
doesn't.
in terms of the emotions and everything happening. So, but take heart is the like. There's still a lot of. I was actually like, I wonder what music this year will bring in store. You mentioned Olivia Rodrigo, but there's
and I don't know. You know, she may just put out whatever, but
but there's a lot of artists that we're sort of like watching right now because of just so like we know they're going to be part of this conversation, but we don't know how yet, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, super curious what happens this year. So journey with us. There's some really good new releases that just came out. Yeah, the Lucinda Williams album, to bring us to current day, is really solid. If you hadn't heard the new Springsteen song, he is meeting the moment with a great song. Some really good jazz came out. I think that's the Julian Lage album and the violin player Joel Ross albums are really, really good. But it's just 1 month in, so let's see what else.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. I was talking to them, but thank you for joining me too, so I'm not sitting on a couch by myself trying to talk about 1969. That would be a very short podcast.
we might need to do another 69 because there's so much 1969.
Yes.
This is not OnlyFans. Because like I'm like, you know, Chicago Transit Authority's first album. There's so much that we haven't even touched on. So,
all right. So stay tuned. We'll see where we go next week. Bye.
See you guys.